You're listening to KUFM in Missoula and KGPR in Great Falls. This is Michael Marsalik, and you are After Hours for another show. We're talking tonight about, this morning, about recycling. And one thing we're doing a little bit differently is this is a live program, and we'll be giving out the phone numbers a little bit later and actually have a little bit of time towards the top of the hour to take a few phone calls. If you have questions or comments, keep those ready, and we'll give you a chance to call in a little bit later. I'm joined this morning by Doug Stewart from Montana Recycling, Steve Carroll from Recycle Missoula, and J.V. Bennett, who's with the University of Montana. He's Recycle Coordinator for the U. And good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
I wanted to start out, the whole idea of this program is to talk just a little bit about recycling in general, what is happening, what can be happening. I've talked to a few people in the last few days getting ready for this show that have a real strong desire to be doing more personally and are a little bit unsure of what they can and can't do already and what's available in the community of Missoula. Now, we are talking to some of the other areas in the state as well tonight, and a little bit later in the show we should be joined by Brian McNitt from Helena. But for now, perhaps we should start out, if one of you guys would like to jump in, let's talk a little bit about where we are as far as recycling currently in Missoula. Steve, you want to?
Well, currently, as far as Recycle Missoula is concerned, we provide a weekly pickup for the about 2,500 households in Missoula. We have a weekly pickup on Wednesdays that goes through the University District. And we also work with 4 different neighborhood groups which use our trucks on Saturdays. The proceeds then going to Recycle Missoula. So Recycle Missoula is doing an actual curbside pickup in Missoula for about 2,000 households.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a program that Doug could talk about, the Blue Bag program, which BFI and Montana Recycling are working on.
Right.
The Blue Bag program is a program put together by BFI that is also a curbside program that, instead of duplication of trips and manpower and picking up the materials, are in the process of collecting a tin can, aluminum can, and newspaper, and giving their customers the opportunity to recycle that would not bring their material on into the recycling center or would have the service of Recycle Missoula at this point in time.
Right. I actually spoke with Max Bauer on the phone yesterday and from BFI, and he said an interesting statistic. He said that perhaps as low as 10% of the people that are currently served by BFI are taking advantage of the Blue Bag program. So I think in general, what's the consensus as far as how many people are or aren't recycling in Missoula?
It's difficult to say. In our program, Recycle Missoula's program, we've estimated that we have 40 to 50% participation. And actually this month we'll be doing an informal survey to find out exactly what our participation is. But we estimate from our program about 50%. So
and that's in
the University District neighborhood. Yeah.
Okay.
We, in the Missoula area and throughout the surrounding areas in Montana and a lot of our cities, a lot of people are aware, and a lot of people are not aware, particularly people that are moving in the state, that we have a pretty extensive history in recycling. Our company, for example, Montana Recycling, which has operations in Billings and Helena, Butte, Bozeman, Great Falls, as well as Missoula and the surrounding areas in Kalispell and Havre and Miles City. We've had programs that have existed for over 20 years now.
Right.
And so people are pretty well educated, and we have a lot of participants that make use of the local recycling centers within their communities. And people in Montana are pretty well educated on what they can recycle and what they can't recycle. And I think that also has an effect on probably a lot of the curbside programs of what they can get, the kind of volumes and tonnages that they can get, because there's a lot of people that are in the habit of bringing the material down to their local recycling centers now.
Which is great, and I think the bottom line is trying to recycle the products.
Right.
And that as long as people are making an effort, and whether it's being picked, who's picking it up or who's delivering it, I don't, think is the real issue. Although I know there's some logistics involved with where the different types of materials can go, and the demand for those materials, and it certainly doesn't stop when the truck backs up to Montana Recycling. I mean, there's a whole other process who's dealing with the materials after that point as well.
And we've seen a lot of changes in the industry, particularly in the last 5 years. At one time, every item that we took at the recycling center we purchased. Today, there's an awful lot of commodities that we do not purchase just because of the lack of demand or the economics in it. In Montana, we're a long ways away from markets for the most part. And you have, your labor, the processing cost, and then you have the freight cost of getting that material from here to Portland or Seattle or to Denver or, St. Louis, depending on where the marketplace is at, or LA for that matter, or overseas. And so in some ways, Montanans might be a little spoiled in that the last, 2 or 3 years, for example, a commodity like glass that they used to obtain the dollar for. Now, it's a donational commodity. However, our volumes in glass are up, and so more and more people are participating. I think for a number of different reasons, because we have programs like Recycle Missoula that makes it convenient for people to recycle. Other reasons is that we have containers, a lot of drop-off locations for materials to be collected, and the people in those areas, in those neighborhoods, use those containers. So we have a lot of those kind of programs that exist. Plus, I think people are more concerned, and I think their hearts are in the right place, and I think they understand the solid waste problems that we are facing, and so you have more participation in the recycling industry and people collecting and saving the materials. I think as time goes on and solid waste costs go up, I think you'll see more participation. And I think that's not that far away.
Yeah, it's going to become even more of a necessity.
Yeah, and an interesting point that Doug mentioned is that as solid waste costs go up, and he may have been referring to the recent EPA guidelines that came out, Subtitle B, which put more regulations into siting and maintenance of landfills across the country, which will likely translate into higher tipping fees, which will then be passed on to consumers, so there'll be greater incentive for recycling. Along those lines, Montana and Missoula and the western region here is really a unique situation. Often people will say, well, why don't you have curbside recycling in Missoula? We have it in Seattle, we have it here and there. But actually, we're unique because we are so far from markets, and we have a landfill that is 50 to 75 years lifetime left in it, which is much different than many other areas in the country. So the task of starting a comprehensive recycling program in Missoula is greater here than it may be in some other areas. Mm-hmm. Although we have a tremendous amount of support and participation in the communities.
Mm-hmm. JV, would you like to fill us in on what's happening with your efforts as trying to coordinate a recycling program with the university?
You bet, Michael. What we've got going on the University of Montana campus is a series of recycling drop-off bins. There are 6 sets of bins for aluminum and glass around campus. Currently, we can't have them in the dormitories for what we're told are health reasons, health hazards. And then there are various departments on campus that are also saving their aluminum and glass, and we'll pick those up. In addition, next to every Kaiman drop-off, we have a bin for recycling newsprint. And again, departments around campus are also saving their newsprint and other kinds of paper, and we'll pick those up. It's interesting what's happening to us at the University of Montana is we're sort of getting overloaded by the interest. We only have so many hours of staff time, and one real great thing that has happened is U-Recycle, which is what we call the University of Montana Recycling Program, started out as a student volunteer effort, and student organizations were putting in the money with some donations from the bookstore on campus and the UC Market. And we started it out with the goal of getting a institutionalized recycling program going. In the past 10 years, there had been I'm not sure the number, but I think like 8 failed attempts at getting recycling going on campus. It would get going and everybody be real gung-ho about volunteering, and then quarters get busy and people start having a life, so to speak, and they just quit coming and recycling, and so stuff would pile up and would never get taken away, which is part of the reason we're getting resistance about going into the dorms with recycling bins actually on each floor in the dorms. It may be a while before we prove to them we can handle the recycling program. But I think that is a goal that we have, is to make it even more convenient than it is. Currently, a dorm resident would have to save their stuff in their room and then take it out to one of the bins on a regular basis. But anyway, at this point, the University of Montana administration has now taken over the program, and they're currently hiring students to be the recycling coordinators. And it's working pretty well, but as I say, we're being a little too successful. We're getting all sorts of calls from departments all over campus who want us to come pick up their recycled goods, and we've fallen a little behind lately, but we're catching up. So if there's anyone in a department on campus listening who has this big pile of recycled stuff in there stored somewhere, really, we're going to get to it really soon. Please be patient. We've got extra people on board now.
And more
we'll
volunteers are probably needed.
You bet. In fact, any students or anyone else who's listening right now would be urged to help volunteer so that we can get this program working real smoothly.
Great. Troy tells me in the other room that Brian is on the line from Helena. Brian is the director of the recycling project for the Montana Environmental Information Center. Brian, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Michael.
Okay, and we can kind of hear you. So tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and what's happening on your end.
Well, I'll tell you about what our project is about here at the Montana Environmental Information Center. The US EPA last year gave the Environmental Center Information Center a grant to set up an information clearinghouse for the state for any kind of information on recycling or solid waste issues in general, waste reduction, those kinds of things. And what we've done is collected as much information as we can from all over Montana and put it into a computer database. And then we have a 800 toll-free telephone line that people can call in from anywhere in the state, anytime, and get information on either their local area, what kinds of things can be recycled, what they need to do to get, to prepare those materials for recycling, what the prices are, if there are any people in the area that have set up community projects for recycling or solid waste. We have contact numbers for a lot of those. General information on recycling, and we want people to call in and ask their questions. We have someone here from 8 to 5 every weekday, and then on the weekends and in the evenings we have a answering machine that we'll just get back with people after they call up. So the main emphasis of our project is just to provide information for people so that when they have the opportunity to recycle, we've let them know where they can and how they can do it.
Well, that's great, and it seems to me that people in those other communities that may be listening tonight, if you're listening in Butte or Great Falls perhaps, or in Kalispell, it's as easy as a toll-free call to the Montana Environmental Information Center to get some information on what is happening in your community. We've talked already a little bit about how quite a few people are already recycling in the Missoula area, and what is your consensus on what's happening statewide in the statewide Montana recycling? How are we doing?
Well, I'm pretty enthusiastic about a lot of the things that have been going on recently in Montana. As you may know, the legislature this year was really dealing with the issue. There were about 25 bills introduced in the state legislature this year on solid waste or recycling-related issues, and about 18 of those eventually got passed into law, got signed into law. So there's a lot of changes going on in Montana, and you can see it in the interest that's around in the various parts of the state, especially in the places that you hadn't seen anything going on before. Out in a lot of the rural areas, they've begun to set up either small recycling collection drop-off centers, or they've started solid waste issue community groups, those kinds of things. So it is a big issue for people around the state, and we've had a big response to our hotline since we've started. We've started taking calls, I guess, about the middle of September, and it looks like we're averaging about 70 to 80 calls a month. We usually get, I would say, 5 to 7 calls a day, and generally they're just people who are real interested in recycling, and they want to know how either they can, where they can take things in their own city, or how they can get more involved and how they can set up a community program in their community. So I'm real optimistic about the things that have gone on so far.
Are you in a position to answer questions as well into other disposal of other household products, perhaps household toxic chemicals or oil and those kind of things that are or aren't recycled but need to be dealt with? Do you have information on that as well?
Yeah, we sure do, Michael. If a lot of times we have information right here that we can give people. We have a fair amount of information on household hazardous waste, alternatives to those, and then also disposal alternatives. And if we don't have the information right here, what we generally do is just get back with people, or if it's an especially tough problem, we just refer them to other agencies, either state agencies or federal agencies, on how to deal with whatever they have. So in one way or another, we can always help with whatever kind of problem they have, either disposing of something or recycling whatever they have.
Well, thank you. Be sure, why don't you go ahead and give that toll-free number out?
Okay, our number here at the Montana Recycling Hotline is 1-800-823-MEIC. And like I said, that's people can call up anytime, and during business hours we have someone here that can talk with you, and then on the rest of the time you can just leave a message and we'll get back with you. And one other thing I'd just like to mention before I get off here, we're starting to publicize one of the bills that was passed last year, this year I should say, in the legislative session, and I know that Doug Stewart there in your studio can talk more about this too, but there was a bill passed that gives tax breaks to businesses who are interested in getting involved in recycling. And the best thing about this bill is that it's written very broadly, so that businesses that are not in the recycling business but that are interested in having, say, drop-off boxes or buying balers and anything that they can put towards the effort to recycle or collect recyclables, they can get a 25% tax credit, 25% of the cost of those materials or that equipment off their income tax. And we're just starting a campaign right now to let people know that that's coming up, that they're going to be able to do that. Any purchases from this year or for the next 5 years coming up, they're going to be able to take those off their income tax. So I just wanted to let you know about that and let people know about that.
Thanks, Brian. Do any of my guests here in Missoula have any comments or questions for Brian?
Hi, Brian. How's everything in Helena?
Pardon me?
I said, how's everything in Helena?
Oh, it's going pretty good. We're answering quite a few questions, and it's going along pretty well.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the 5% tax credit that goes along with that Senate Bill 111?
Yeah, thanks, Doug. That's a good idea, too. Businesses that have decided that they want to use recycled materials, materials that are produced from recycled materials, such as paper, I guess would be the general one. This new law allows businesses that purchase recycled products to deduct an additional 5% of the cost of the products from their income tax. So, if your business uses recycled, copy paper, recycled computer paper, then they can also deduct 5% of the cost of that each year off their income tax.
Well, thank you, Brian. I think we'll let you go at this point and free up the phone lines and give some other folks a chance to try to call if they have to ask any questions. I will give out your phone number once again before the top of the hour. Thanks for getting up and calling us.
Okay, thanks a lot, Michael.
We appreciate it.
Bye.
Brian McNitt calling from Helena. He's director of the recycling project for the Montana Environmental Information Center. If you would like to call, we have about 17 minutes till the top of the hour. At 6 o'clock, we will join the Network National Public Radio for Weekend Edition. We've got about 15 minutes or so that we could answer some questions perhaps, or share in some comments for my guests. I'm talking with Steve Carroll from Recycle Missoula, Doug Stewart from Montana Recycling, and J.B. Bennett, one of the recycling coordinators for the University of Montana. The numbers to call if you're in Missoula, it's 243-4931, and toll-free statewide, the number is 1-800-325-1565. If you have a question or comment, give us a call right now, and we'll try to put you on the air before the top of the hour. Where should we go from here? Perhaps, what would you like to see happen with the recycling in the Missoula area, or perhaps, statewide, nationwide?
I think Recycle Missoula as a group and we really started out as, and we still are, a volunteer organization that was pushing to see more recycling going on in Missoula. And so we, as a group, would like to see a more comprehensive community-wide program in place. And in Missoula right now we have a great opportunity for that, in that there's a solid waste task force here in town, a city-county solid waste task force, which is taking a look at various solid waste issues: composting, household hazardous waste, recycling, reduction. The number of committees working on all those different issues. What makes this a great opportunity is that on this task force you have business representatives like Doug Stewart from BFI and Doug Stewart from Montana Recycling and Jim Leiter from BFI. You have various environmental groups, Recycle Missoula, the Missoula Greens, Montpurg, citizen representatives, city council person Will Wood, a variety of people there. What's great about this is that you have the people at the table there that can make the decisions on recycling and solid waste, and can talk about what the issues are and actually make some things happen. We're meeting on a monthly basis right here in Missoula. So that's one avenue that we all have, at least here in Missoula and in the county, to advocate for and work for some more comprehensive programs.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of those task forces that exist in Helena, Montana, for example, and other cities as well. So a lot of the communities have formed these type of solid waste and recycling task force to discuss the issues and try to come up with some type of a program that is going to work within their community. And every community is different. In Montana, there's probably the reason that our company is over 20 years old, and probably the reason for that is we've been very selective on what we've been able to give the incentives to the public to bring on into our operations to get to the marketplace. We're finding today that a lot of our markets are somewhat threatened, and people in Montana have probably been somewhat spoiled. We've been buying things in the state of Montana for a lot of years, and there's a lot of states where you may be even charged to have the material collected, or it's been on a donational basis. We have at this time nationwide, if not internationally, we do have a situation where the cart is ahead of the horse, where we have a lot of material that is being collected, but we do not have the markets for the material.
Right.
And we believe that that's in a process of working itself out. But I think it's real important, just like Brian's program out of Helena, and for our cities and our county government as well as our federal government, really be involved in good, strong educational programs so people understand, what's taking place, how the system works, how the economics of the system works. We have the laws of supply and demand. And those laws, just can't be ignored. And in some cases, in some states, they kind of have been, and because of that, we have problems that have filtered clear into, our market sources in Montana, mm-hmm. and have caused us, some of those markets' credibility of whether or not those markets will even be in existence a year or two from now. And those are some of the concerns that we have. The face of the industry is changing dramatically. The solid waste industry is, looking more and more at the recycling industry. In fact, BFI and some of the larger solid waste companies have gotten involved now in the recycling industry, become the number 1 and number 2 recycler in the country. A lot of the smaller recycling operations that used to exist, for example, in the Seattle area, are no longer in existence. So we have a lot of changing taking place. We have recycling companies that are in the process of getting into the solid waste industry, and it's all tied together, and it relates very, very well. And I think you sit back and you look at the issues, you look at how closely they're connected. You can understand why these companies are making those particular moves. Both the recyclers into the solid waste industry and the solid waste industry into the recycling industry, or working together. And so far in Montana, we've had a lot of cooperation from the non-profitable organizations, which we've always had, with the sheltered workshops, like, for example, Flathead Industries in Kalispell, Montana. Works very closely with our company in marketing and materials, and also the folk shop out of Ronan, and we can go through one non-profitable organization after another that, part of their existence and also providing jobs for their clients. Their purpose is set in stone, and I applaud these people. They've been in the process of recycling for a number of years and providing a service in the communities that they're in. At the same time, you have the solid waste industry now that are looking at different type of recycling programs, such as the blue bag program that we have here. And we're one of the few communities, and a small community, that is offering this type of service in the country, and it's an experimental basis. And we're learning more and more all the time. And I think the one thing that I've learned so far is that, again, along with every program that we get involved with, we need to have the strong educational aspect to go along with it. And if there's anything lacking in that program right now, I'd say that's probably where it probably lies right now.
Great. I'd like to give the phone numbers out once again. We do have time to take at least a call, or perhaps two. If you do have a question or comment, this is a live program, and I have guests in studio right now. If you'd like to call with a question or comment, it's 243-4931 here in Missoula, or toll-free 1-800-325-1565 if you're in one of the surrounding areas. I'd like to quickly, I guess, just run through what is and what isn't recyclable right now, quickly what is being accepted. I know there are some folks that have been thinking about it. Everybody knows aluminum cans and newspaper. What beyond that is able to be recycled by Montana Recycling? Can we say picked up by you?
Well, right now, actually being picked up by Recycle Missoula, we have our PET bottles, correct? So we have the PET, which is, to put it in layman terms, the pop containers, the plastic pop containers. And we also have the natural, what we call high density. HDPE is the term that is used. What basically we're talking about is the milk containers. And so those two types of plastics we do have markets for at this point in time. And the plastic industry is somewhat behind, but there's going to be a lot of development in that area, a lot of pressure being put on that industry. And so we expect to see a lot more activity in that area, and see it expand to a lot of other types of plastics as well. You'll notice when you go into the grocery store that if you take the plastic containers and turn them upside down, there is a recycling emblem, and it'll have a code 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are basically to help our people in the industry to be able to sort out and separate out the material, and also to help educate the public. But there's still some standardization that needs to be done in that industry as far as that goes, because we'll find sometimes one number on it one time and get another number on the second time. So there's a little bit of work needs to be done in that industry yet. Quite a bit of work actually needs to be done in the plastic industry. The newsprint is something that's also being collected. We mentioned the tin cans that can be recycled. These are like your soup cans, and the reason that has become a little bit more valid of a market is over the last 20 years ago, the main purpose for taking a tin can would be used in the leaching process in a copper mine, for example. Today, the steel industry can actually use that as a source of material, and the main reason for that is that the tin that was once maybe made up 25% of that particular commodity is now somewhere in the neighborhood of 4%, just a little over 4%. So, which has made it a more desirable commodity to be collected by the steel industry. Tin makes their product a little brittle, therefore they don't want, want that in there, and yet there's a certain amount of tin that they need to produce their product as well. Along with that, you're looking at high-grade paper. High-grade paper would be your white ledger, your computer printout. We do take colored ledger. We have not and statewide, I'm kind of probably going out on a limb a little bit, have not cut off any colored ledger accounts. We're still accepting it, but frankly, to process it and to pay the freight to get it back to the market, it isn't carrying its own weight at this point in time. So that is a market and a commodity that we are a little bit in question of at this point in time. But our country's in a recession, and hopefully, as we move out of that recession, we'll see a lot more demand for these particular products. We expect corrugated cardboard is another area that the commodity that is recycled, and that is growing in popularity in most of the cities where there's that type of recycling operation that can use that material, and even in the communities that do not. For example, a lot of the small towns and the grocery stores and like that Senate Bill 111, they can buy balers now and they can get a 25% tax credit in putting that baler in. And through their distribution centers, that corrugated is being picked up and dropped off at our operations, and then from there being rebaled and shipped to the marketplace. So there's a lot of activity. Anything you can think of that?
I think you mentioned it all. One thing I wanted to mention was that we're talking a lot about recycling here, and I think it's important that we mention that recycling isn't the end-all, that what we really need to be doing is reduction, and that means limiting our consumption to a point, buying in bulk, looking for products that have less packaging, and just reducing the amount of waste that we produce.
And also trying to purchase things that are already made from recycled products. And there's a difference in the products too, whether something's made from 100% recycled materials or just partially from recycled materials. There's kind of a labeling feature there that you need to be aware of, and definitely let's talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, there's also the differentiation between pre-consumer and post-consumer recycled paper, particularly. If it's pre-consumer recycled paper is the stuff they've always been sweeping off the floor at the paper mill and running that through instead of throwing it away or burning it. And they've been doing that for a number of years, and since recycling has become popular, now they're putting on their labels that this is a recycled material. It is a recycled material, but we shouldn't be fooled into thinking that that's came from the stuff we sent to Montana Recycling or someplace else. What people really should be trying to do is buying products that have post-consumer, meaning it's been through the hands of a consumer once and then gone back to the recycling center and has been made into a new product. And I think that it would be hard to underestimate the need for buying post-consumer recycled products, whether it be paper or other things. I think aluminum has a real good return as far as being recycled and going back into use rapidly, but paper in particular could use some help. And so when you're out buying your stationery, you're out buying your toilet paper or whatever, try to find paper that's post-consumer recycled paper, because that helps increase that demand so that we can actually do something with the stuff that recycling centers are taking in, so it doesn't end up just piling up somewhere.
Right. We've got just a few minutes left. Perhaps maybe we should talk a little bit about what recommendations you'd have for somebody listening that either is already recycling, as to what to look for, what to watch for, what to try to do, what makes it easier perhaps to recycle your own household products, and definitely give some phone numbers out as to how they can get involved with with Recycle Missoula and with the university. We're going to need to kind of wrap things up in the next couple of minutes, but if we could talk a little bit about that. Steve?
Well, I can start with our phone number.
Okay. Get that out there first.
Our phone number for Recycle Missoula, if you have any questions or want some information, is 728-5733. As far as making it easier, I think it's getting the information, finding out what is currently being recycled. Doug mentioned education, and that's real important, especially in the paper markets. There's so many different grades of paper and in particular office recycling. If you have an office program, make sure that you get the information from the local redemption center so that you know what is currently recyclable. You'll end up having a program. If you don't, you'll end up having a program where you get a lot of things that are coming back to you. many things like envelopes and mimeograph paper and certain kinds of paper that you might think are recyclable actually aren't currently recycled or aren't currently being taken. So it's important to get that information.
Okay.
It's also, I think, important to realize it's a dynamic market. And
Right,
what's
it's changing.
recyclable or not recyclable today, that may change
Right.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Right.
very quickly.
I think if we concentrate on the word pre-cycle, when a word that we do not concentrate enough on, and again, we talked about it just a little bit, but that's basically, as far as I'm concerned, it's kind of how you live out your life. You put your money where your mouth is, and industry will get the message. So therefore, you support commodities that have been produced from recycled products. You are very selective in the type of product that you obtain, so that you limit your waste that is going into the garbage can. If I think that if people are take the time to think out, what they're going to purchase, what they're going to buy. That money talks, and industry gets the message. And I could tell you a story, which we don't have time for, about a very large international corporation that we affected their sales to the point to where they came on out to talk to us about, why their product was being badmouthed, and it was just that it wasn't recycled.
Okay. JV, quickly, a phone number?
Yeah, people on the campus who want to have their recycled stuff picked up should call Jerry Michaud at the physical plant at 243-2420.
Great. Well, thanks for joining me, gentlemen. I've been talking with Steve Carroll from Recycle Missoula, Doug Stewart from Montana Recycling, J.V. Bennett is one of the recycling coordinators for the University of Montana, and thanks for getting up early and coming down and talking about this. For the radio audience, we are also taping this for Missoula Community Access Television, and it will be aired in the coming weeks on Missoula Community Access Television. And I'd like to encourage people to try to listen then. If you have more questions, I'll also give out that toll-free number in Helena to call the Montana Environmental Information Center and get some information from them on any topic around recycling. The number is 1-800-823-MEIC. It's Michael Marsalic, Montana After Hours. You're listening to KUFM in Missoula at 89.1 FM and KGPR Great Falls at 89.9 FM. Thank you.
From National Public Radio in Washington, D.C.
I think I'll just start with